Sis and Tell, a whole lot of talk, about a whole lot of nothing. Amanda does stand up, Alison's on TV, and when they hop on the phone, it's the place you wanna be. Sis and Tell.
Hey, Allie.
Hey, man, what's going on?
So I ended up having a catch-up lunch with my friend Michael Sokol. Do you know Michael Sokol?
Yeah, the Walking Dads. What is it?
That's funny. Yeah, because so I did. Yeah, for people who have no idea what we're talking about, I used to be obsessed with The Walking Dead, and my friend Michael and I did a web series called The Walking Dads, which the premise was we were hosts of a cable access show set during the zombie apocalypse times, and we were providing tips to survive your relationships during the zombie apocalypse. It was a great concept.
It was just weird enough to be awesome.
Yeah. But so anyway, I mean, that was like several years ago, but he's in the creative world, and we just always, he jokes that he'll call me and be like, I have 5 minutes. And then like an hour later, we're still on the phone. But so we planned a lunch, and he picked this restaurant off of Buford Highway, which is this area in Atlanta where like there are so many restaurants that wherever you go, it's going to be great. And they have from all different cultures and ethnicities, just these fabulous restaurants. And he picked this great Korean restaurant. And then he says to me, well, I actually have to go into this Western wear store across the street to get something for my Halloween costume. Do you want to come with me? And I said, of course I do.
Yes, the answer is emphatic yes.
And just so Buford Highway has like the most random stuff, right? Like you can go get those like really inexpensive foot massages. You can do karaoke. You can find like the best sushi you've had in your whole entire life. So we go to what I think is just going to be a Western wear store. And it's this entire mall inside this building, right? It's called Plaza Fiesta. And it was.
It's already setting you up for fun. I mean, anything called Plaza Fiesta means it's going to be a party, right?
Yeah, they had a food court, and it was all tacos, and they had they had like quinceañera dresses, and it was this. When we walked into this Western store, I thought I was in Texas. Do you know what I mean? It was like they had the most gorgeous cowboy boots. They had, I don't know why, but they were selling saddles, like horse saddles. I'm like, who is buying a horse saddle in the middle of Atlanta?
There are people. I mean, because you just go not too far outside of Atlanta, and there's plenty of ranches and farms and people who are really into horseback riding. So I get that.
But he went in there because he needed for his costume a bolo. And I want to know if you know what his costume is based on needing a bolo.
Well, all I know is that there are two characters in the show Yellowstone who wear bolos, and they get made fun of because they're not wearing them correctly. So that's if you're watching Yellowstone, anybody a Yellowstone fan, that's my only immediate reference.
Oh, it's much older it's nothing new.
So he might be dressing as me circa 1983 when bolo ties were in, and I was wearing them for some reason.
I know why. I said to Michael, I said, don't you remember when bolos were trending? And I don't think it was just in 83. I remember past that.
Right. It might be later. 83 might have been more of the neon phase for me, actually. So.
But like we were wearing, I go, don't you remember when bolos were in the 80s? He's like, no.
Oh,
I go,
my
well,
gosh.
Your mother was not Arlene Goldstein.
Yes.
Who was like coming home with bolos for you to wear. Like, why were we wearing bolos? I don't even what caused that trend? Oh, was it Dallas? Was it the show Dallas?
Maybe. The timing might be right.
It makes sense.
Okay, so what was he dressed as? I don't get it.
He was dressed as Vincent Vega and what's her name? Uma Thurman. It's from Pulp Fiction.
Oh, that's a good one. Vince Vega.
Vince Vega and what's her name? Mia. I forget.
Yes.
Mia Wallace. Mia Wallace.
That is such a good movie.
So he was, he wears a bolo in that, and then all over Facebook I saw people were going at this couple. Except Michael, being that he's creative, felt like he needed to upgrade the costume, so he built for his wife Becca the syringe going into her chest.
Come on.
So she wasn't just walking around looking like Mia Wallace, she also was from the
Oh my
specific
gosh. Oh my gosh. Spoiler alert, right? She does live, but that scene is just
Oh yeah.
gut-wrenching.
Oh.
Literally. It is painful. It's that Pulp Fiction. If people have not seen Pulp Fiction, it's so good.
How have people not seen that?
I
at
know.
this
And by the
point?
way, so I have become obsessive about Halloween. I don't know what happened. I mean, I loved it when the kids were little and we would dress up and go and all of those. But now that we're empty nesting, and this has happened for a few years, I might have told you we go about a half mile away to our friend's house, Jim and Jill, and she has a great porch, so it's not like you have to go inside and wait for the doorbell to ring. We just sit out there, we have dinner, we drink wine, and we wait for trick-or-treaters. I realized the only reason she's really having us over, besides the fact that we're all friends, is she doesn't even like handing out Halloween candy. And I love it. So I'm like her Halloween mule. I am the conduit through which she buys, 500 pieces of candy and gets me to come over to hand it out. And it's a win-win situation because I dress up, I sit on the stairs, I wait for all these kids, and then I interact with every single one of them, no matter how old they are. And
that sounds like so much fun to me. I love that.
It's so much fun. Not many of them think I'm very funny, but I'm going to work on my shtick. The best is when I realize that people are dressed up in 80s costumes or references to 80s movies. I don't know why. It brings me so much joy. The first time it happened, this boy walked up, and to be fair, in my head, I'm thinking, he's not really dressed in a costume, but I'm going to give him candy anyway. He's out. He's making an effort because he's wearing some jeans and kind of a long sleeve button-up shirt and like a vest. And I'm like, okay. Then all of a sudden I did a double take and I
know
said,
who
is it?
Marty McFly.
Yes. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I go, are you from Back to the Future? He goes, yes. And then I look at him and he looks exactly like
Did he have
Marty
the
McFly.
Walkman?
Oh, I don't know if he had the Walkman, but he even had the haircut that
Wow.
Michael J. Fox had in that movie. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you. I said, please tell me you've also seen the movie. He goes, yes, ma'am, of course. I'm like,
Yes,
I'm so
ma'am.
happy.
Well,
Then-
it's so funny
yeah.
because Murray was debating between two costumes, and one of them was Marty McFly. And I was just like, Murray, first of all, you are 6'2", 6'3". Marty McFly he's tiny.
He is
like
tiny.
Michael J. Fox is 5'6". And not that has to be a part of the costume, but it just feels like it does. And that's not like a packaged costume you can find on Amazon. It was
Right.
going to be I had to get the Walkman, right? That's a pain in the butt. But so he ended up going as Elvis, right?
He
So
looked
that
great.
made it.
Yes.
So yeah, he was a great Elvis. And he went and looked up all these quotes, all these Elvis quotes, and memorized them. So throughout the night, he's saying all these Elvis quotes.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I like somebody who's all in. The
Yeah.
other greatest costume I saw were 3 young women. They were probably 12 or 13, and they were dressed as the Clueless girls. And they were in
Oh.
the exact outfits. I looked at the one who was dressed as what's her name?
Cher. Alicia
not-
Silverstone.
Yeah, Alicia Silverstone's character. And oh my gosh, what's her name in the movie?
Cher.
No. Oh, Cher. Yes, you're
Yes,
right. Sorry.
that's her name
I'm
in the
thinking,
movie.
yeah, I'm thinking of the other one. Sorry. So yes, dressed as Cher, duh. And it was that yellow suit. It was a mini skirt and a little jacket.
plaid.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my gosh, I think that's her exact outfit. She's like, yeah. And then I look around, all 3 of them are identical to the characters. And I said, and again, I'm like, you've seen the movie, right? I get very protective over like the integrity of the original. They're like, yes, of course, we love it. Because at first I said, are you dressed as Mean Girls? And they said, no, Clueless.
The other Mean Girls, right?
Yes. So I'm like, oh, even better. I'm so happy. But-
So if you were going to an 80s party, what would you be wearing?
So back up. So is it a party where I have to dress like people who dressed in the 80s
Yes.
or like a movie from the 80s?
Not a movie from the 80s.
Okay.
You have to dress like someone who lived in the 80s. What would you be wearing?
All right. Well, I sort of have an inside scoop because I did grow up. Those were my formative years. So
Right.
I would choose the neon / leg warmer / off the shoulder cut sweatshirt look with my hair in a side ponytail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and actually, I'm cheating even more because one of the trick-or-treaters came dressed like that, and her cutoff sweatshirt was MTV. double props to her. And I gave her extra candy because I said, what's around your ankles? What do you call those? She goes, leg warmers. And we all went, yes, you know what they are. So it was, and we kept saying to this young woman, oh my gosh, we looked just like that. We know you're dressed in a costume, but I literally wore that outfit for like 4 years of my life.
So this is what I find so fascinating about 80s parties, is that when we dress up as adults going to 80s parties, we are dressing up as children,
right,
in what they wore in the 80s. We're not like, because if you ask mommy what she would wear to an 80s party, she would dress more like giant shoulder pads, big earrings, the makeup, the like tons of like eye makeup and heavy blush.
Yes.
Right? Maybe a power suit with some pumps. But she would be dressed as an adult in the 80s because she was an adult in the 80s. Whereas we as adults are dressing like children, and it makes no sense. Like, it's kind of weird because if you were going to go to a 70s party, like,
yes,
you're not dressing like a kid in the 70s. You're dressing like more like probably a college student in the 70s. So we're all running around these 80s parties dressed like we're 9.
But I also feel like during the 80s, those lines were a little bit blurred because, you know, when I think about the tights, the leg warmers, things like that, I also think about the workout videos and, you know, the Jane Fonda era and those iconic figures who came out wearing some of that garb. And the funny thing is that those adults and that specific vocation, right, that was the health, you know, care, not healthcare, the health and fitness world were really, it transitioned into the just the standard everyday wear, which I think sort of happened. I don't know if that was so prominent in any other generation. And I think that's why it looks like we're dressed as kids. But really, I think a lot of the adults wore that. They just didn't wear it to work per se. We were wearing it to school or to sporting events or to dances.
Not mommy.
Mommy's pretty much looked the same though for the past like 7 decades. So
yeah, right. It's true. Her hair. I mean, but like when we say that, it sounds like she needs a makeover, right?
No,
but she doesn't. Like, there's those, like, I remember like those Oprah Winfrey makeovers that she would do where someone had not changed their style for 30 years and they needed to be made over. But Mommy's has evolved, right?
Correct.
It's the same style, but an evolution, an up-to-date evolution of her style. So the eye makeup has changed, the amount of shoulder pads has changed, the the length of the skirt, you know, the accessories.
That's all evolved and adapted, but her look has been timeless.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. So I have to come clean about something.
Uh-oh, what'd you do?
I've been holding back, and I didn't know if I was going to bring it up, but I don't think I can reach full closure and self-forgiveness until I come clean to you about this. I went way off brand a few weeks ago during a speech. And if I say, I'm actually I'm exaggerating for a little bit for effect, but.
Can I guess what the off-brand was?
There's only one thing that's off-brand that I would do in a speech, and you can absolutely guess it, but don't say what it was. Well, yeah, say what you think it was.
I'm going to guess that you cursed.
That is correct.
Oh, yes.
And it was not, I don't write my speeches. And for, background, I am not an angel. I do have a potty mouth.
It sounds like you construct your speeches. You may not write them down, but you don't have a speechwriter. It sounds like you're saying you have a speechwriter when you said, I don't write my speeches.
Oh, sorry. I don't write them down. Like, so there's no formal speech I'm reading from. So I'm usually it's like this a la carte menu of stories, etc. in my head that I've it's like, you with your comedy, like, well, you probably have a pretty straight set that, you're going from one story to another. I sometimes do it. And then a lot of times I'll divert because something reminds me of something, or I'm feeding off the audience. All this to say, background, I really never, ever, ever, well, I can't say that anymore, but usually never, ever curse in a public setting. And that includes, I wrote a column for a parent magazine for 5 different magazines over the course of 15 years and turned those into a book. There's not a single curse word in any of those. I used to always say, if Alice, right, if our Mimi was reading it, would she approve? And that was very important to me. I've, between speeches, between interviews on PBS for 14 years, between this podcast, you know how many times I've bleeped you out. It's just become my standard bearer. So why, after 52 years of following this code, did I divert from the norm? And I don't have an answer to that other to say that I started to tell this story, and it was for a group of women in Texas. And and so if they're now listening to this, they'll know. I mean, if whether it landed on them badly or not, I don't know. I was telling a story in the context of philanthropy and how there are a lot of things we can do there are a lot of things we can do for other people, including our own children. But, giving is not one of them. Being generous in spirit or with your time or treasure is not one of them. I can't do that for my child. And I kind of said, I can do a lot of things for my child, right? I can feed them. I said, frankly, I said, I can wipe there. And I should have said tushy.
Oh, no.
But I said, in my head, it really landed funnier if I just said, I can wipe there. And I said the other word for tushy. And then I caught myself, and then I was sort of embarrassed because I think I caught them off guard a little bit. And it's not the worst curse word in the word to say, like, really, in the scheme of things.
You weren't calling someone that. You were referring to it. Yeah.
And I'll back up. It's because, there's this book I read probably 15 years ago, Tiny Ladies in Shiny Pants, which is still one of the funniest books I've ever read. And it's a collection of stories by this woman who used to write for 6 Feet Under, and she's a Jewish woman who grew up in Chicago. And in one of the chapters, she talks about having a 9-year-old and how he still goes into a public restroom with her because she needs to wipe his tush. And she says, he's 9 and I wipe his tush. And you know why? Because I still do it better. Okay. And I always thought that was the funniest line. And she doesn't say tush. She says the other word. And so in my head, I was sort of channeling her because it was so funny. So in the moment I just said it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt so guilty. I can't even tell you. For like 3 days, it's all I could think about. And then
what?
I know.
Seriously?
It's stupid.
These are the things that keep you up at night?
Well, that and night sweats. But yes, these are the things that keep me up at night. And oh my gosh, I could not give myself any grace. I was so hard on myself. I was so regretful. And all of a sudden, and then finally,
did anyone come up to you afterwards and be like, that was shocking?
No,
because ass is not a bad word.
I know. So you said it. Okay, thank
you.
I know. And it's funny, I finally told Alan. Well, I did say something to my friend Leslie, who's one of my dear friends, and she had picked me up, and I kind of went off script a little bit and said that. She goes, a few people were like, oh, and she goes, it's over. You continue. She had a great line, like, that chapter's over. Continue writing your story or something like that. I'm like, you're right. And then finally I got home. So Leslie was the only one I really asked about. And then I got home and I said to Alan, I have to confess. And I told him, and he looks at me and he goes, okay. I go, is it bad that I said that? He goes, no, nobody cares.
No
Literally.
one cares.
You're the only one who cares.
Yeah.
So that's it.
I think in context, and it's fine. And if you look at the big picture of your general tonality and the message you were delivering.
Yeah.
So if they're stuck on this one word, then you didn't do a good job overall. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Right. And that's not what they're paying attention to. Right. If it's that one thing, then you're just not, you didn't do what you came to do, and you did, which was to inspire people and to entertain them. And I don't think that one word, there are a lot worse curse words. And you weren't calling someone that. Again, you were referencing a body part.
Right.
So,
well, and you know how this is. Sometimes we try things out in front of a live audience, and it either it goes over great or it totally crashes and bombs, and we know not to do that again. But the only way to try it is to do it. I don't think I have to try cursing, right? I'm not saying that, but
you didn't mean to. You weren't setting out to be like, maybe I can add this to my shtick, right?
Yeah.
It was not.
It was totally spontaneous, but also just reminded me that. I'm always very sensitive about who the audience is and how my intent lands on people and what the impact is. This was a minor thing, but it was more me. I don't think I hope nobody in there left thinking, oh, she said the word, a bad word for tushy. But then I said, I was about to say tushy, and Alan goes, that's actually much funnier, right? To say the Yiddish word. I said, yeah, you're right. I said, I should have said that. Or tuchus. Yeah. So anyway, I've been holding that back because I know I'm always very not judgy, but I get a little bit on edge when you say something that's not appropriate for the podcast because I have this certain code that has been with me, but I broke it and that happened. So.
That's what the censor button is for, that you have full access to because you're doing the editing. So so we're fine. We're good. Yeah. You know, no one's complaining. The only complaint we've got about the podcast is about someone driving my minivan in a way they did not like, and we don't know. It could be me. It could have been my husband. We'll never know because the big bumper stickers on that. So, but literally, that's the only complaint I've seen at least on the Apple podcast. So,
all right, good, yeah, because I've been censoring you, which I'm not in favor of censorship unless it's me censoring you.
I mean, I do think that sometimes the censor beep is funnier than the actual word.
It is.
Right, and sometimes I say it like
you know that I'm going to censor you. You just do it for effect.
Yeah. No, not. I mean, sometimes I do it because it's funny to see your reaction. But sometimes I don't even mean to, and it's not my fault. I'm going to throw under the bus my experience at Jewish summer camp because we would come back talking like truck drivers.
100%.
That's just, and then mommy would be like, okay, we've got to start talking normal again. And I just never did. Yeah. I never did. And here we are today.
Mommy literally once said to me, because my mouth had gotten so bad, it was such a potty mouth, she said, well, I just hope that one day you want to become a truck driver or a sailor because those are the only jobs that you will be qualified for. And, I did consider it. I considered one of the two. It didn't work out for me. I get seasick and also I get car sick. So those were not going to work out for me. The only thing that I was excited about was, I could curse without anybody judging me. And I don't know why those two professions get all automatically thrown under the bus. Yeah.
Comedian also is probably, so I'm good. Right?
You're good. Yeah.
And you know what? I don't even curse on stage.
Right.
I'm a clean comedian. Mommy does not think so, but I am I am so wholesome. Like you should hear these other comedians, and it's not just like comparatively. Like I'm really my comedy is clean. I don't find a need to curse. And there's some people who curse and it doesn't make any sense, right? Yeah. It's not adding any flavor. It's not helping the joke. So I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah. This was my whole debate. I think we talked about this when I interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk. Right. Yeah. And it's this idea that if cursing, I'm obviously not opposed to cursing. I do it appropriate time and place and around the right people, which is usually me and myself and I, or you, or mommy. But it's this idea of if it's detracting from an audience experience, why do you have to do it just for the sake of doing it? That's what I don't get about people who curse for the sake of cursing because it's sort of like this, F you, I'm going to do this and you can't stop me. And I lived a whole life where people were telling me how to act and talk. So
I think he curses. I don't even think he's cursing on purpose anymore. I think it's just how he talks.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just it's part of his lingo. He's not like setting out to curse. How many curse words can I add into one sentence? Or I'm going to say this to get a rise out of people. Yeah. I just think it's how he communicates. Do you remember the first time you heard mommy cursing?
No.
Because I do. I remember. I
They're
think
all sort of melded together for me now.
I remember she hurt herself, right? She hurt her finger or slammed her finger in a drawer and then she dropped an F-bomb and I was like, oh.
Here we go. New
Mommy! Era. Didn't even know you knew that word.
Respect, woman. Props to you. Well, someone said the other day about how their young child said, well, I heard you say the S word. And I said, well, you have to be very clear on what the S word is in your house because the S word in our house was shut up. I mean, I even think when I heard mom or dad curse for the first time, that's one of those phrases or words that we never heard them say. And that's still, even in my house, I was like, there's a lot of things we will tolerate, but saying shut up to someone is not, because this idea that you literally shut someone down, right?
And the H word.
And hate's the other one that you cannot say.
That we heard that a lot more, saying don't say shut up and don't say hate.
Yeah.
Those more than anything. I think we could have dropped a lot of F-bombs, and that would have been better than saying hate or shut up.
Yeah. Well, Arthur once in the car in the minivan, he was like, I know I can't say shut up, but can I say you need to go shut the front door? I go, of course you can say that. He goes, can I say you need to go upstairs to your room? And I go, yes, you can say that. I don't understand what you're saying. He goes, I'm just checking. And he goes, Abe, you need to shut the front door and go upstairs to your room. And I said,
Very
strategic. I said, that was very clever. I said, you could no longer say those phrases.
Well, but do you know, people say shut the front door as like
Alan can't stand that. Alan cannot stand anything like the era where the kids were going, what the, right? And they heard that from TV. He can't stand anything that even stands for a curse word. Yes.
Oh, fudge.
Right. He's our fire truck. He's like, no, you can't say that either. So
man,
he's worse than my parent, right? I get called out all the time.
That is inappropriate.
I know. And to all of you who enjoy cursing and embrace cursing and think it's fine, I'm with you there too. I don't do it in public. I do think there is merit to just a really good use of a strategically placed, well-warranted curse word, right? Not around kids or maybe, the elderly. Or the elderly probably earned it too. But, I
have to say, my favorite curse word is mother.
Well, you knew I was going to zing that immediately. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but there.
Thanks. How many censor buttons are in this podcast? Let me count. It'll be a drinking game.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, just don't, not on your morning walk, y'all. This is like a late night. We're on the couch for the rest of the night type of thing.
But no judgment.
But, Southerners have figured out a way to curse without cursing, I have to say. The biggest, F you is bless your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Bless your heart.
That is the biggest. That is, people, if you've never been told that, then you consider yourself lucky. If you live south of the Mason-Dixon line, nobody ever said to you, bless your heart. That is literally the most condescending phrase ever. Mm-hmm.
Now there's emojis you're evidently not supposed to use that have sarcasm or annoyance in them that I didn't know. Like, did you know, the thumbs up emoji is not a good emoji to use anymore?
Why?
Because it's like this. I mean, I can't, obviously people can't see my face. It's like,
great job. Oh,
great,
that's supposed to be snarky?
Right.
But what if it's
thanks.
not?
It's snarky. Right. I think it depends on the generation. It depends on the generation. But for me, a thumbs up is fine. It's like, okay. But for them, it's like snarky, like great.
Okay. So let's go through the evolution. I can't use words anymore. So now I'm down to acronyms. I can't use the acronyms anymore. So I'm down to emojis. Now I can't use the emojis. What am I supposed to do to communicate across generations and to make my intentions known?
Now you have to use GIFs.
You can't even use those.
Why not? Well, it depends on the GIF.
It depends.
Yeah, right? I feel like those are more expressive because they're moving. I don't know. Now you've got to use bit emojis. I don't even use those. I can't stand bit emojis.
Oh, I do like those where it's your own, it's your little person doing things.
Right. It's not me. I've yet to find someone who's got my hair.
Yeah.
I'm not finding me in a Bitmoji. Instead, I just take pictures of me making those expressions and I send them to people.
That's good. That's more realistic.
Customized Bitmoji.
Customized Bitmoji.
Bitmandy. That's what we'll call it.
I do love a good Bitmoji with a big happy birthday banner above her head and sending that to people.
Speaking of which, our sister-in-law's birthday is coming up on Friday.
It is.
This is your birthday podcast, Melissa. This is dedicated to you.
This is dedicated to the one I love.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to the latest Sis Tell podcast. Don't forget to share us with your friends, share us with your family, share us with your foes.
As always, this has been Amanda and Alison with a whole lot of talk about a whole lot of nothing. We'll catch you next time.